is this little video. This is the titular part of the stream. It's called Understanding All the Eviction Ban Nonsense. Everybody joins the constitutional shredding. This guy is named Matt Christiansen. I don't know who he is. But he thinks that evictions are good things because he's a dumbass. And if you think evictions are good things right now, if you're like, evictions are good things, they're not paying their bills, you don't know how capitalism works. And that's okay, because Papa's here to teach you. If you got a little tiny baby brain, don't worry. I'm going to add folds to it, bruh. Use the word chud is cringe. You know what else is cringe? Do you know what else is cringe? Go ahead, Cook. What else is cringe? Being a chud. There you go. Yeah. Some other people got it right. Being an actual chud. That's more cringe. So, yeah. See, a lot of you understand it. Anyway, so this is so don't be one. And instead, how about you just like buckle up and let daddy just say dumbass or dumb fuck then. No, I'm going to say chud, Cook. How about you get fucking used to it, bitch? I'm in charge here, not you, little boy. Sit down and watch. Anyway, enjoy yourself. I'm going to do all the work here. All you got to do is sit back and Cook, you could just sit back and drink a nice, delicious, what I got here. I got a sparkling seltzer. I got a pineapple seltzer. How about you calm the fuck down and let me teach you a thing or two.
If you're like me, you might look at the week's worth of news on the back and forth, on again, off again national eviction moratorium with a raised eyebrow and a lot of questions. First of all, how is the federal government doing any of this? How is the federal government telling landlords they are legally banned from booting people who don't pay their bills, deadbeats and squatters, from their property? And even if the federal government can do that, how is any of this possibly the domain of the CDC? They're the Centers for Disease Control, not the Centers for Rent Control, or in this case, the Centers for Rent Elimination. And why have the politics totally reversed? Why?
Okay, let's stop him there because he keeps asking a lot of questions. Okay, even his shirt is the USA flag. Well, you can't have more than one thing about your personality, chat. Everybody knows I only talk about corn and literally nothing else, and that's why we're here. I can't possibly have actual things going on. So he's asking why the Constitution is like this. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't protect renters. I don't really know. There's also nothing that says if you're a landlord, the government can't step in to prevent evictions. That's not a thing. It's not even remotely a constitutional issue at all. There's nothing about like free markets or capitalism in the Constitution. So, and this is an economic issue, but it's also an ethics issue, right? So, as far as the CDC is concerned, they're not like the people saying that this isn't going to happen. They're not like in charge of no evictions, right? And I hope everyone agreed. He framed it in the way that like the CDC, like the director of the CDC and the board of directors are like super in charge of like evictions and stuff. It's like that's not a thing. The CDC recommends in the time of COVID not to have a bunch of homeless people, you know? Hey, Cook, why don't you shut the fuck up and listen for a little bit? How about you do that? There you go. Good job. Shut the fuck up and listen instead of talking. For a hot 600. There you go. So stick around because no one can read what you type. Like have enough integrity and be strong enough, be manly enough, be brave enough to shut the fuck up and listen to somebody else talk for just a second. So I'm going to do that. It is listening time. You're in the corner now. Get back over to the corner along with that other fucking guy. You're in separate corners, though, and don't talk to each other. I know how that gets. Double timeout, or we're separating the rooms. You're not going to be able to play together later. Anyway. So the CDC is just recommending that we don't have homeless people in the middle of a pandemic. And why would you do that? Well, because the pandemic would be exacerbated by people's living conditions being on the street. Another thing to consider is that the reason they even are facing eviction is because the government didn't do enough to help them. The Trump administration and the fucking Biden administration, even though they did a little bit more, neither of them have handled this enough to be able to mitigate the negative effects of not being able to work for a year. Like, what? Like, they didn't do enough. So protecting them from eviction is a good thing. Did you know that that also applies to any, I don't know, landlords who also rent? like what? And I understand you're like, but think of the landlords. Because you're a fucking dumbass. Only a dumbass would say, think of the landlords. Think of capitalism. Have you thought about capitalism? Because it's capitalists who are mad about this, right? Because a socialist or a leftist in general, whatever you identify as if you're not a capitalist, you're like, well, yeah, that makes sense because we need people to be living in homes. We need them to be able to be safe. And so leftists, of course, like myself, have answers to these things. If you don't want landlords to get, I don't know, what's kind of the term they're using now? I guess having deadbeats and you know, renters not pay their bills or whatever. I know a way to help landlords out so they'll never have to get a payment missed ever again. Ban landlords. You can't miss being a landlord if you're not one. So can't miss a payment if you don't have it. Land is commodified, and I understand some ways of land commodification make some sense, right? I think there's some reasonable, especially not in the ideal society, in this society right now, the way it exists, right? Long term, we want to decommodify any of that kind of stuff because there's no reason to commodify it. We can all just live harmoniously. However, it is commodified right now where there's no way we're going to get out of housing at any point. Flavor, thanks so much for giving one to Poseidus John. Appreciate you, dude. So what you got to do in that scenario is consider what is the positive and negative impact, okay, of having an eviction ban. Session, thank you so much for the 10 months. And I might be addressing all of his points up front, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Let's just talk about it for a second so we can set our framework as we move through this 17-minute video. What's the positive of letting evictions happen? The one positive under this system right now is that landlords will get paid for their, you know, what was agreed upon them to be paid, basically. That's the positive, right? Now, what are the negatives of letting an eviction ban run out and letting people get evicted? The negatives are a myriad of things, not including but not limited to. I mean, number one is just a health and safety problem. Vast communities throughout the country, all over the country, in rural areas where you're Trump voters, in cosmopolitan areas where they're Dem voters. Excuse me, sounded tragic there. I just had like a little thing. All over the country, you're gonna have rampant homelessness. And what happens when you have homelessness? Lots of bad things. Yeah, tell them to tune in right now, Quinn. Everhell, thanks for the prime. Thanks for the 50 biddies, Quinn.
Good call, baby bird. Good call.
So if you have rampant homelessness, not only do you have like just a COVID problem, absolutely, but assume COVID wasn't even in existence right now. Assume we eradicated it yesterday. And then tomorrow, we're like, okay, COVID is defeated. No one can have COVID ever again. No one's going to die from it. Everything's fine. Every virus of COVID is gone. if tomorrow we evict everybody because they haven't been able to pay bills during the pandemic, you have an incredible influx of impoverished, homeless people and families that then become desperate, and increasingly so every day, to find places to live. And of course, there's just a cascade of effects that happens if you lose your home. Anybody who's ever have you ever thought about just like moving, like of your own volition? When you move, your whole life is uprooted. That entire process of moving. It's really hard to maintain even a little bit of consistency when you're moving your house from wherever you are to wherever you're going to be. Now imagine moving all of that into a car or something, even if you even have a car, couch surfing, especially if you got kids, whatever. Warlock, thank you so much for giving one to Defeater. It increases crime. And I thought that Republicans and capitalists in general, like guys like this, consider themselves like law and order type people, right? Now, if you consider yourself a law and order type person, the reason you're a law and order type person is not because, fuck criminals. It's because you want a safe place to live, right? You may also have this like weird fuck criminals thing going on. Is that Jordan Peterson behind Jake? Yeah, Jordan Peterson is here, and he overlooks disapprovingly at the sub points as they rise. Every sub that increases, Jordan Peterson gets more and more upset. So that's just he's overlooking it. Just he does not approve. And so if crime increases because people are impoverished, and it's like everybody knows that the poorer you are, the more likely and reasonable crime is. Theft for survival is huge, or just anything for survival insofar as crime is committed. Most people do crime to make ends meet. I mean, it just is the facts of the matter, because of capitalism, of course. So if you have a bunch of people just out on the streets immediately, you have an incredible flux of individuals that are now not necessarily going to turn criminals, but you'll have more criminals for sure. Now, for me, are criminals that big a deal? Depends on what they're doing, but I think it's a bigger issue just from a health and safety standpoint, just from an American standpoint. If we are truly the greatest country in the world, shouldn't we just simply be that? Can the greatest country in the world have the highest number of jailed people and the highest number of homeless people per capita in the world? Can we do that? The highest rate of infections in the world? I don't know, dude. I don't think that's very great.
Why has Joe Biden gone from saying he has absolutely no authority to be the country's one and only ultimate landlord to switching and saying, okay, you got me, rent is banned again? And if that sounds made up, well, that's because it is. But how it was all made up is very important to understand, because of all the constitutional mockeries of the last year and a half, this one is among the biggest in the scale of its victims and among the harshest in its total lack of recourse or...
The scale of its victims? What are you talking about? What? You have literally... If you're just worried about number of victims, literally more people rent from landlords than are landlords. What? I mean...
compensation for them. It's also an injustice of wide participation. It includes every branch of the federal government and our media institutions in a slam dunk contest of the Bill of Rights straight into the trash. Of all the
Bill of Rights, what part of the Bill of Rights is being violated? Is he going to mention that?
Corona lessons to learn and
watch
watch out for next time.
That's true.
This is probably the most understated one. So let's first back up to how this Dunkfest got started way back in March of 2020 in the early coronavirus scramble with the first stimulus bill called the CARES Act. Congress banned evictions on limited properties to which the federal government at least had some stake or claim. They banned evictions on properties with federally backed mortgages
The Constitution clearly says no.
or of tenants receiving federal housing aid until the end of August 2020. But that move was limited in its coverage, of course. Only about a quarter of apartment buildings or other multifamily units in the country have a federally backed mortgage. And of course, not everybody receives federal housing assistance. So this bill was minimal in stopping evictions for non-payment. There were proposals in Congress to try to ban all evictions outright, but Congress could never agree to that, and so those proposals stalled. With Congress's inaction, frustrated activists proposed a different method to achieve their ends. Hey, let's just have the federal bureaucracy do it. And so after Congress's initial ban expired, the CDC stepped in to do just that. And so in September of 2020, the CDC just said, hey, no more evictions anywhere anymore, at least for non-payment reasons. And if you do evict any deadbeat tenants, you landlords are going to face fines of up to $100,000. And I don't know, maybe even a year in prison too. Ostensibly, this move was to alleviate a financial mess, but of course, federal bureaucrats don't often clean messes up. They more often make them, which is exactly what this order did. It offered no way for landlords to recoup that unpaid rent. It also offered no additional assistance for renters to pay that rent, though.
Would you be in favor of governmentally subsidized like landlord relief in exchange for eviction bans? Because I bet he wouldn't. I bet he wouldn't. I bet if you said, hey, landlords get every cent they're due from the federal government. Yes, that is what was done. Shh, 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 shh.
There were existing rental aid programs that shockingly were not efficient in distributing money and experienced long delays. So in effect, this order simply delayed the time at which landlords can collect the rent that they're owed, meaning landlords are left to try to collect their earnings in bulk down the line. And if your tenant isn't good for $1,000 in September, odds are he won't be good for $4,000 in January either. So
yes, that's the argument. That's the argument. I'm just saying, personally, if you're a landlord and you're having a hard time making ends meet, I mean, simply get another job. I mean, McDonald's is hiring. Why don't you get another job? Everybody knows that you can just go get a job at McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, get a second job. Get a third job if you need. I mean, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you lazy fucking landlord. What are you talking about? Like, what? What are you bitching about? Have you considered going back to a trade school or something, getting your HVAC certification? Have you considered learning to code? I mean, you know, why are you bitching about other people when you should be relying on yourself, landlords? Think about the fucking personal responsibility. Wow.
Same problem is just compounded and extended. It isn't fixed. It's actually harder to solve in bulk later than it would be at its proper time. And how is any of this the CDC's role? Well, we'll get to the bulk of that justification more in a minute, but the CDC says it can do this through the Public Health Service Act.
Public Health Service Act 361. Wow, 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 wow. Shh, shh, shh. The federal government derives its authority for isolation and quarantine from the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. Under Section 361 of the Public Health Act, the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, this is not the CDC, it is delegated after, so it's not, like, he keeps making it sound like the CDC is doing unilateral things. No, it allows the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services to delegate that down to the CDC. Is authorized to make measures to prevent entry and spread of communicable diseases from foreign countries in the United States and between states. The authority for carrying out these functions is the CDC. Under 42 Code of Federal Regulations, blah, 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 is authorized to detain, medically examine, and release persons arriving into and traveling between states. Wait. This is the other one, though. Why is he saying this one? Because this isn't the one that covers that, bro. At least it doesn't seem like it. Maybe it is. Let me look again. Yeah, this is for ports of entry and stuff like that. But either way, detain people in rental properties. But either way, grant it sweeping authority. I don't know, but either way, even if it's not on the books, right? Because there's when I type that in, a bunch of other stuff happens. Public Health Service Act. I get 361. I get 330 popping up. 319, 501. So I mean, like what are all of these things? So 330 is a statute about requirements for eligible healthcare entities to be given certifications and awards for their specific like duties, I guess, like their specific things that they do. Oh, so he cited the wrong one. It's 319. It's section 319. 319, the Public Health Safety Act, provides the legal authority for the Department of Health and Human Services, among other things, to respond to public health emergencies. The act authorizes the HHS Secretary to lead federal public health and medical response to public health emergencies, determine that the public health emergency exists, and assist states in that response activity. I mean, like it's 319, not that other one. It took me a little bit of Googling to ensure what he actually fucking meant. That was it. There, we did it. 319. Not 361. Like, where is he getting this information from? What is this? Is this? Jesus fucking Christ. Look at this.
Good call, baby bird. Good call.
He cites all of the articles. Is this the first one? Oops. Bree, thanks for the Prime for 32 months. This is not the thing he is looking at now. I don't even know where he's looking at now. But it's not 361. It's just like clearly not that. But it's 319.
Federal law that usually gives the CDC decontamination power at contaminated sites that are public health hazards. Despite that suspect reasoning, this can of crap has just been...
All right, Cook. See you later, bro. There you go. All right, we're done with chat being stun locked in there.
Kicked down the road ever since. The CDC extended the moratorium upon Biden's free and fair and fortified inauguration, and it was extended again in March and extended once more in June. Throughout that time, legal challenge to the eviction ban had been working its way through the courts. In May, a federal judge struck it down as unconstitutional. Biden's Justice Department
potentially federal judge overturns national eviction ban. I don't even know how it
appealed.
What part of the
Supreme
Constitution,
Court,
specifically the Bill of Rights, is being violated? What he mentioned that, but he's not saying anything. I actually don't know what this could be.
Took up the case in July and said, yeah, this is a bunch of unconstitutional crap, but the CDC's eviction ban is set to expire in a couple weeks, so whatever. We're just going to let it play out, and then it's Congress's problem to deal with that.
Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was the fifth in deciding vote, issued a brief statement. Because the CDC plans to end the moratorium in only a few weeks, because of those weeks, will offer additional and more orderly distribution of congressionally appropriated rental assistance funds. You'll say that Congress had to pass new legislation. The CDC wanted to stay. Okay.
After that, more on that gutlessness in a minute. But all of
who won the election? It was Joe Biden.
That gets us to the political theater of the last few weeks. Biden had originally said that his hands were tied by the Supreme Court decision and that he would allow the eviction moratorium to expire. The Supreme Court was clear. Biden said it would exceed his authority to extend the ban. If there's anything to be done about this, it is Congress's job, not his. But the problem for him and the eviction ban activists is, just like before, Congress isn't going to do anything about it, at least in a traditional legislative sense. In a ridiculous theatrical sense, though, Congress did plenty about that. At least one particular congresswoman, Cori Bush, who, among others, organized a multi-night Capitol steps sleepover to protest the supposed injustice of landlords actually getting paid for the use of their property per the contracts that their tenants signed. But no, none of that matters, because housing is a human right. So your property rights be damned. You don't have a right to your property. Instead, I have a right to your property, and I get the government's forceful hand to back me up. That's not just a constitutional betrayal. That is a constitutional reversal. Every bit as nonsensical as saying political censorship is a human right. But that will be her next sign very soon. Other notable human rights apparently include Oreos and Ruffles paid for by the U.S. taxpayer and campaign donor.
Oh, fuck. It would be a shame if we had name brand food given to people that need food. Like, what? These are probably donated, dude. Like, what the fuck? There's some pretzels back there, too. What do you want them to have? Fucking sticks of celery, bro? Where were they getting the food from? Like, who cares? Someone probably bought a bunch of shit and brought it up. It's not a snack. Oh, you have to eat only fucking vitamins if you do a political stunt. Jesus fucking Christ. Dumbass.
As well as 6 figures worth of private security to keep her safe, because her vending machine provisions must be protected from you peasants who, of course, aren't worthy of such security for yourselves.
I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets.
Yeah, you know, a charitably donated $200,000 could probably cover a lot of past due rent, but that too, apparently, is none of our business.
$200,000? Just $200,000? Wow.
Voluntary and charitable care for each other won't get us out of this mess. Only theft from you will, to pay for the rest of your property that they're also stealing. And it would be hypocrisy if these people had any claim of loyalty to principle or process, but of course they don't. And so naturally, their proposed solution was simply to ignore the principle and the process. And so top Democrats urged Biden, you know what? Screw the Supreme Court. Screw the Constitution. Just extend the moratorium again and make John Roberts come out and settle it with one of those fistfights or push-up contests you're always going on about. And then within days, moderate, principled, champion of normalcy, Joe Biden.
Why is this is just so? Why is he? He's fucking actively editorializing, like right at the. It's like. It's so frustrating to listen to. This is like Sticks and Hammer if he stopped using like little baby words. This is like what Razor Fist thinks he sounds like. You know what I mean?
Once again did the puppet work of his activist, extremist, anti-Constitution masters. And he totally reversed himself. Did I say that my hands are tied? Because I meant that my hands are at your command. And if you guys say tear up the Constitution and flip the double birds to the Supreme Court, well, that is
what part of the Constitution is being violated, please? He said the Bill of Rights. All right. Chat, let's read the Bill of Rights real quick. Let's find out what could he possibly think is a violation. It's not going to be established religion or freedom of speech, so it's not one. Well-regulated militia. Number 2. Right to bear arms. So that's not it. Amendment 3. No soldier shall be quartered forcibly. Right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. No. No person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crimes unless on a presented indictment of the grand jury. No. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right of speedy and public trial. No. In suits of common law where the value and controversy shall exceed $20, the right by trial, the jury shall be preserved. So no, this is just making sure you get a trial by jury. Excessive bail? No. Enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people? No. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, not prohibited by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or the people. Those are the Bill of Rights. What Bill of Rights is what of the Bill of Rights is being violated here? Why did he mention the Bill of Rights? It's 3. It's 3. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in manner to be prescribed by law. It's not 3. Maybe we skipped one, Kappa. Let's read the preamble. Fuck. Yeah, no. When renters weren't represented in the Bill of Rights, were they? No, and neither were landlords. He thinks property is being seized, but it's not property seizing. What? The Bill of Rights doesn't say that. The Bill of Rights says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, like, by the federal government. He thinks it's a violation of the 4th. This is for search warrants. And to take property from somebody on the account they did a crime? It's definitely not 3, Rabe. I mean, it just isn't. This is it's definitely a violation of the 8th. Excessive bail. That's true. I know, he is that dumb? Oh, okay. Well, yep. I mean, it's just not in the Constitution. They argue that it's 3. I mean, I haven't fucking seen that. Ice Cream, thanks for the biddies.
What my hands will do.
Let's
but
see.
with moderation, normalcy, dignity, and absolutely no mean tweets, of course, because as we all know, it's not radical authoritarianism unless there's a tweet with random capitalizations and misspellings. Well, how in the hell is this happening?
What?
You might be wondering.
What?
I thought the Supreme Court said...
He's just vaguely gesturing at something. We don't know exactly what. Just vague gesturing towards that thing. A Trump tweet, maybe?
All of this is unconstitutional. And yes, they did, but only on tame, deferential, non-specific technical grounds, not on thoroughly explained matters of constitutional principle.
There's no constitutional principle necessary. You could make an argument probably from case law. I'm sure there's plenty of case law that talks about evictions and the legality of that. But if you're making a constitutional argument, irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the conversation. In fact, I would argue that the Constitution does more to protect renters in this specific situation than it does to protect landlords. The end of the 5th Amendment. The end of the 5th Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused, so this is only about the accused in a criminal prosecution, has the right to a speedy trial by an impartial jury of the state, and to be informed of the nature of the cause of accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have oh, that's 6, sorry. No person shall be held for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, so again, a crime being held, Except in the case of except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. So no double jeopardy, nor shall... This is about... What? This is about pleading the fifth, dude. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. But they're not being deprived of it. No one's taking their property. And it's not a part of a case. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. I mean, they're not taking it. They're staying, I guess. No one's taking anything. But it's also not... In the context of this, it is specifically not about just general property. It is about specifically a situation in which the federal government can't take it from you. Yeah, this isn't the scenario here. The federal government isn't taking anything from anybody. They aren't seizing anything from anybody. So, and basically the idea with the fifth is that you can't be forced to incriminate yourself that would lead to those things. Not that you can't have property taken from you, because obviously that's untrue. Like that would make like it, that interpretation of the Constitution, which is a dumb one, would make like repo men unconstitutional. You know what I mean? Like, it would make, which, I mean, is fine, I guess, but, like, it would make, like impounding your car unconstitutional. And that just, like, is obviously not the case, so that's just a bad interpretation of that.
The 5-4 decision Kavanaugh wrote and the court issued was 1 page long. And all it says is, yeah, we agree with the lower court that the CDC has no authority to do this, but since they're stopping in a few weeks... And since rental assistance payments are going out, we're just going to punt the question and allow it all to expire naturally. And that reasoning is, 1, incredibly weak, but 2, self-defeating.
Police steal more property than criminals do. True!
Since it says something is wrong, but then leaves a path for that wrong to continue. Just because an injustice has expired doesn't mean that we don't address that injustice. We still explain why it was wrong, so that it doesn't happen again. But the Supreme Court dabbles in this sort of puntery all the time. There were several cases of other coronavirus and lockdown policy that the court dismissed as moot simply because the rules were revised or had expired. And even though it's not always the majority's reasoning, it is a common feature of the Chief Justice's reasoning. In a case brought by New York Catholic churches last fall against Andrew Cuomo's occupancy limits, a dissenting John Roberts said that there was no need for the Supreme Court to intervene because the restrictions in question had already been revised.
He's like bitching about this. I thought he's a small government guy. You want the Supreme Court to take as few cases as is necessary every year. The fewer they take, the better, because it means that things don't have to like be vastly changed. But when they do take a case, they go over it and they decide whether it's constitutional. They don't decide whether it's ethical. They decide whether it's constitutional. This is like, I don't know what people think the judicial branch even does. They interpret the law, and they're supposed to be impartial about it, which obviously is impossible to do. But they interpret the law. They don't make any law. They don't make prescriptions on the problem, which is what he thinks they're doing. Like the judicial branch is not a prescriptive entity. It is a reactionary entity. It reacts to the things that comes across its table. It decides, and then it will deliberate whether a thing is allowed or not allowed. It will not determine the value of that allowance or lack thereof. Like, so weird. That's anodyne quinine. I just disagree with that interpretation of this. Like, I don't think... The more I read this amendment, the less it sounds like that at all. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Yeah, there's nothing in there that implies that you can't do that. Plus, I mean, just the government's eminent domain, like the government's it's first year law school stuff, sure. But I'm just saying, like eminent domain just deletes like the argument that anyone's making on this side about eviction bans. Because as soon as the federal government steps in and says, hey, they can use it for this, then they can. I mean, it just doesn't matter, right? They're not seizing the property. They're not ripping the property away from them. If they were taking landlords' actual, like things without compensating and, like, he's definitely still full of shit. I'm saying, like, so his argument is basically that somewhere, he didn't say specifically what Bill of Rights. He said one of the Bill of Rights is being violated in regards to having eviction bans, meaning we don't allow landlords to evict people who have been negatively affected financially from COVID over the course of it. And frankly, it's due to the government's ineptitude throughout the entire process of it. So, yeah. Just constitution when taking private property. But I don't need to read that because we're not talking about taking property at all. I'm fine if you want to have a... If you're really fucked up about landlords, I'm fine with them getting some sort of compensation if that's what it takes to get people not to be evicted. But I don't think that's what it takes. I don't feel like do you think landlords are suffering right now? Because I don't know a single landlord that's fucking going through a hard time. Yeah, it's a moratorium. That's how it works. We should think of the landlords and lift their burden by nationalizing all residential rental properties at cost. True. I'm 100% fine with federalizing and nationalizing rented properties. 100% fine with that. Be easy.
In a separate free speech case in March, John Roberts was the sole dissent, refusing to protect a college student who was banned from speaking about his religion and distributing literature on his public university campus on the basis that the dispute was moot because that student had graduated and the restrictions against him no longer existed. As though the question of whether the injustice stopped is more important than the nature of the injustice itself.
Do you think, guy in flannel, that you know more than the 9 Supreme Court justices that presided over the case? When it's a 8-1 decision, you can be sure that the 9 Supreme Court justices probably have a little bit better handle on the constitutionality of the particular case. Because the I don't know who needs to hear this, probably fucking everybody. When you have a case that goes to court that needs to reach a decision, if it's to reach a decision, not be settled, then that decision is contextual only specifically to the case. And if there are aspects, this is what case law is, it's a roughly thing. But like, for instance, when we sued the Christiano brothers, our lawyers fought for basically DMCA protections for YouTube. And we were kind of on the way to being able to do that. However, the defense made a terrible defense, which was good for us and bad for precedents. Because the argument that they made in their defense was basically our guy got really mad and so he did the DMCA thing. So unless somebody else had a similar defense in the future, this is how he explained it to me, it really wouldn't set precedence in the way that we were looking to, because it doesn't help anybody unless they're dumb enough to go like, yeah, we were mad. You know what I mean? So, who needs their Constitution initiate? Thomas Paine. True. He would definitely ask that.
Or what made it injustice in the first place. If someone steals your property, the legal or moral remedy is not, oh, well, I guess they stopped stealing, so now the question is moot. Get back to me if they start stealing again. No, the question is, what about the stealing was wrong? What about the stealing was illegal? What about the stealing was immoral?
We're just talking about a hypothetical, right?
And what standards can we set so
Constitution?
that nobody can repeat
like
that
that.
same theft tomorrow? And in this evictions moratorium case, those questions are just as important, because we are talking about stealing. We are talking about theft. We are talking about federal bureaucrats deciding on a whim that you as a landlord are not, in fact, entitled to your property, and that instead they get to direct your use of it and your earnings from it, or
In a state of emergency or in a situation where the public health of the nation would be negatively affected by you running that thing. Yep. Yeah. Maybe if you fucking wore masks and got vaccinated, the landlords would be fine. If you actually care about landlords, actually give a shit about landlords, instead of virtue signaling about how bad they have it, instead of just like out here appealing to emotions, dude, how about you take action yourself? Take active political action to get what you want done. Do it. Take the steps that would be necessary for those poor little suffering landlords to be able to get paid what they justly deserve. And what would that entail? Well, of course, quarantining if you feel sick, wearing a mask when you're out and about, not touching your face after you touch surfaces, sanitizing your hands, making sure that you go get vaccinated at the earliest opportunity, and that while you get vaccinated, you make sure to be as safe as possible. And as we continue with the vaccinations, you make sure you get your second shot, and then if we need boosters in the future, get those fucking too. And then what would be really great is if you stop going around to people and telling them not to get fucking vaxxed. You stop going to big group events with a bunch of unvaccinated people. You're just spreading this shit around. Florida has like 400 million cases right now. Florida has more cases of coronavirus right now in Dade County than there are people in the United States. That's a fact. Don't look it up. Nader B-Man, thanks for following. I got a bad when I came in. Well, I mean, don't get a bad. I don't know what that means, dude. Rental property is investment. Sometimes they don't turn a profit. The nature of investing. True. Oh, you got an ad. Well, there you go. Ads are what you get when you click on Twitch. But Jake, that's cuck talk. Well, I guess you got to be cucks. Suck it up, baby. I'm fucking your wife.
to erase them if they see fit. Kavanaugh said in the Supreme Court decision that the
consensually, like she'd be into it. Obviously, it's Cobb.
CDC exceeded its authority, but exceeded its authority how? Statutorily? Constitutionally? That's an explanation that would be key in stopping this nonsense going forward. As I mentioned earlier, the CDC says they have statutory authority to do this based on federal law that allows them to compel disinfection at sites of public hazard. But that's not what's happening here.
That's not what was cited.
This isn't fumigation of an infection site, as the statute describes. It is broad suspension of every rental contract in the country, whether the apartment is infected or not. And that's
not what the fucking.
That's just the statutory question. What about the constitutional one?
Please, for the love of God, tell me what Bill of Rights was violated.
In his decision, Kavanaugh said that Congress could extend this eviction moratorium with clear and specific legislation, but could they? How could they? Why could they? In what context can Congress simply strip us of our property rights that the 5th and 14th Amendments protect? When private property is
So now he's going with the Fifth Amendment. He is going with the Fifth Amendment.
seized for public use, which is generally what's happening here, the Fifth Amendment says the property owners must be justly compensated, which they currently are not. And how?
Look, if you want to bang out in court if landlords deserve compensation for the period of time that people could not afford to give them rent because of the pandemic, bang that out in court. Happy to have it. But in the meantime, you can't just go like, well, I feel like this is the case. I guess since I feel like it's the way, I guess we should just get rid of evict all of them. Just evict them, you know? Or how about quit being a bitch? Just wait. Could be it. And of course, if you're a landlord who doesn't have enough money to pay their bills, bootstraps anybody? Go get a job at the fucking factory, dude. Go get a job at the Tic Tac factory down the road, okay? You'll get fresh breath, and you'll be able to pay your bills, dude. Learn to code, as we said. Learn a trade. It's just simple, isn't it? I mean, what? No one said, by the way, that you were guaranteed a living being a landlord. Okay? There's no minimum wage for being a landlord. All right? And that's the way the Lord intended. Okay? Get rid of all minimum wages. Weird. Strange how you're only concerned about one sector of blue-collar individuals. Pretty interesting. Could get 2 jobs. Could get 3 jobs, right? Get a real job, maybe. Yeah, that could be it. What are you doing? Just laying around being lazy? Owning a house? Fucking loser.
How is any of this the domain of the federal government at all?
How is this motherfucker genuinely just asked, how is it they're under the purview of the federal government to decide how the country should run best during a global pandemic? These motherfuckers are so stupid, dude. So dumb. All right, I'm done with this video. He's not going to say anything else. He's just going to virtue signal. So, basically, what it comes down to is this, okay? Eviction bans are good, actually. And here's why. Capitalism, we're stuck to it, right? We're stuck to capitalism right now. If America was a pool, we'd all be swimming in it, okay? And that pool water, that's called capitalism. We can't get the fuck out of it. We can't. So we're stuck to it. So what best serves capitalism right now, right this second? Evicting everybody? I don't think so. I don't think that helps your capitalism. Not even a little bit. You know what would help capitalism, though? Federally owned free housing for all that need or want it. That would work. Like and subscribe.